Let's now talk about loops in Python. Loops are a very important concept in Python because we sometimes want to do repetitive tasks in a programming language like Python. For example, if I ask you to print 5 numbers back to back, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, I think you might be able to do that very easily. But what will happen if I say print numbers from 1 to 1000? I think you will be able to do that. I won't challenge you, but once again, I want to give you a thought. Would you want to invest your time in printing 1 to 1000 by writing 1000 lines of code? No, because there is a better way to do that in Python. And to handle repetitive tasks in Python, we use loops. Primarily, there are two main types of loops in Python. One is a for loop and the other is a while loop. In this video, we are going to focus on for loop and we'll understand in great detail how and why for loop is important. But let's come to this handbook which I've written for you exclusively. In this handbook, I've written everything about loops for your revision. So basically for loops are used to iterate over a sequence. It can be a list, string or range. We have not yet studied about a list, but still we are going to learn about for loops. Let me create a folder called for loops. Let me call it loops, and we are going to study everything about loops in this particular folder. Let's create a new file called for_loops.py and let's start by printing 1 to 5. Now you might think that why am I doing that? Why am I printing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5? So if I do something like this, I can do that. Like nobody can stop me from doing that, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. But if somebody asks me to print 1 to 1 million, I think I'll give up. I won't do that. I won't even try that. Okay. But I can actually do that using loops and I'll show you how. So if you want to print 1 to 5, you can do something like for I in range, and then you can say from 1 and then to 6, and I'll show you why it's 1 to 6. We'll understand why it's 1 to 6, and then I'll say print I. This is going to produce the same output. So let me comment this out. Control// to comment. For I in range 1 to 6, print I, and this is how we can print 1 to 5. Now you might think that why is it 6 and not 5? Basically the range function goes from 1 to n-1. So whatever we give it to n-1. Okay, so if I say range 2 to 7, it will go from 2 all the way till 6. Let me write a comment here. Range function goes from 1 to 7 in this case. Okay, so let me click on view word wrap. If you're facing this horizontal scroll bar and you want to get rid of this horizontal scroll bar, you can go to view and then click on word wrap. These are some tricks that you can learn along with this course, and I don't want to skip all these tricks because these are really very important. For example, we learned about multi-cursor functionality of VS Code. We learned about screencast mode. If you are presenting or teaching somebody in the future, you can use the same technique, right? And whatever I type will be visible here. You can also use that technique. So back to the range function. Range function goes from 1 to 5 in this case. I'm sorry about that. 1 to 5 in this case. Okay. So 1 to n-1. And let me also write 6 minus 1. So it goes from 1 to 6 minus 1. Okay. Which is 5. That is 5. Okay. In this case. Now if you zoom out, you will see this in one line. But if you zoom in, since we have the word wrap toggled, we are seeing multiple lines, which is actually a single line. So this all highlighted is line number 7. Okay, don't get confused with this because line number 7 would have actually overflown had I not turned the word wrap on. But now since I have the word wrap on, you are seeing this wrapped line. Okay, this is called word wrap. It's a very basic thing. Okay, let's run this program and you're going to see 1 to 5, a very, very simple for loop. Let's now understand how we can use for loops to do certain other things. For example, let us say I want to print a table of 5. I can say for I in range and I want to go from 1 to 10. So I'll say 1, 11. And then what I'll say is I'll say print. And since I want to print table of 5, I'll say 5 and I'll say multiply 5 multiply. And then I'll say I and let's print it. So 5 multiplied by I, and it's going to print the table of 5 for me. 5 into 1, 5 into 2, but let me comment this one out because it is getting confusing. So let's run this part only. 5 for I in range 1 to 11, and then we are saying print 5 into I, which is 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 35, all the way till 50. To make it even more beautiful, I can do something like print, and I can put a string here. And after I print a string here, I'll say 5 multiply by, and then I'll also print I, and then another comma. And if I run this program, and then I'll also print an equal to, and let's try to run this, and it is showing me a syntax error. Oops, my bad. So I need to put a comma here, and let me run this program again, and it shows me something like this. I can actually replace this star with an X. And how this is working is really very simple. Let me explain you how this is working. So basically what happens is, we are saying 5 multiply by, this is being printed for all the values of I. So for the first value of I, it prints 5, and then it prints X. And then the value of I for the first iteration of this loop is going to be 1. So it prints 1. And then it prints a space by default. But I've also added another space here. So I think I should get rid of this space, because whenever I am separating my print statements parameters with a comma, it automatically adds a white space. So if I say print 5x, and then I print I, then I print an equal to, and then I print 5 multiply by I can actually write it like this, and it is going to print 5 multiply by I. Let me explain this to you once again. So basically what happens is, if I run this program, it prints something like this. So for the first iteration of I, the value of I is 1. So it prints 5, and then it prints X. Then it prints a space by default, because whenever we use a comma with print statement, it prints a space by default. Then it prints an I, and then once again it prints a space by default. So this is that space. Then it prints equal to, and then it prints in a space by default. It once again prints a space, and then it prints 5 star I. Okay. And this is how this particular loop is working for all the iteration. So this runs for I is equal to 1. Then this runs for I is equal to 2. Then the same line works for I is equal to 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And then finally for 10. It doesn't work for I is equal to 11. Why? Because it's the rule. The range function goes from the first number to second number minus 1. Okay. And this is something that you should definitely keep in mind, because this is where most of the Python programmers get confused, and you don't want to be one of those programmers. Alright, so I hope that this was a good explainer of for loops. We are going to revisit for loops once again, because it's a very important topic, especially when it is used to iterate a list or a tuple. What does that mean? We'll see in the later lectures. But for now, I hope that you are having a good grasp of Python. Make sure that you access the handbook so that you have everything written at one place after you complete this course. I am dedicated to make this course the best learning experience for you. See you in the next video.